We have an inspiring Indian businesswoman. It's indeed my honor to introduce and welcome Ms. Priya Paul, Chairperson, Apeejay Surrendra Park Hotels. She's the creative powerhouse behind India's leading collection of contemporary luxury boutique hotels, the Park Hotels, we all know it, and also the social catalyst brand Zone by the Park. Ms. Priya serves on various corporate boards and is an executive committee member of the Hotel Association of India. She's a founding member of the World Travel and Tourism Council, and she has served as the chairperson of that organization. She's also the recipient of the prestigious Padma Shri, India's 4th highest civilian honor for her services to the trade and industry by the President of India. She was also conferred the National Order of Merit from the President of France. Today, as she joins us for PRAXIS, she will speak on the impact of culture and community in building a powerful corporate reputation. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a very warm welcome to Ms. Priya.
So, good afternoon again, and thank you very much, PRAXIS, for having me here today. In fact, when Amit Prabhu and Nikhil Khanna invited me, I really didn't know much about what you do here, but I was very delighted with the topic, and that is culture, community, and creativity. Because that's really something that's been fundamental to the success of Apeejay Surrendra Park Hotels. So as I've learned more about PRAXIS, the last few days I was getting a little anxious because I said, my God, this is going to be a really formidable audience to speak to, 600 people from the profession. So thank you for having me. I hope we will go on this little journey of Apeejay Surrendra Park Hotels together this afternoon, and then I look forward to your questions and answers later. So Apeejay Surrendra Park Hotels is part of Apeejay Surrendra Group. It was founded in 1910 with its foundations in the steel and steel trading business. Our current businesses are shipping, real estate and logistics, tea, schools, and of course, hospitality. The business is owned jointly by me and my sister Preeti and brother Karan, and we own it equally and we participate equally in the growth and development of the business. Our first hotel opened in 1967 in Calcutta on Park Street, and that was, that was and is the fashionable street from the early 1900s, and our hotel took its name from Park Street, of course. The second hotel was in Visakhapatnam, which opened in 1968, and that was Andhra Pradesh's first 5-star hotel. And then we built a hotel in New Delhi, right in the heart of the capital in Parliament Street, which I'm sure a lot of you know. I joined the business in 1988 with absolutely no background in hospitality, apart from seeing it growing up as a child and experiencing the business through my father's eyes and through my mother, who was also working in the business from time to time in hospitality. So I think that's really key to maybe my successful journey, if you would call it, or the way I looked at hotels. The thing is, I was not from a hospitality, a BA in it, or a kind of a, whether it was Cornell or IHM in that time. In fact, I did apply to Cornell for a hospitality management program, and they rejected me. So, it may have been in the back of my head in the 80s, but certainly I think I'm happy that I didn't know it, because when I went into, that was my first job in 1988 when I was 22 years old, training under my father, and I really, I was able to look at it very differently, and I was to look at it and question, why do you have to do things in the same old way just because X hotel does it, or that's what you've learned in hotel school. And I think that was what allowed me to take the risks and to allow to be different. And, I guess I was also 22, 23, 24, and I was able to really question and examine and say, you know, I don't want to do it in this way. And isn't there another way of doing it? So that's really how I started looking at it. And there was, I was looking at one hotel in the, when I started working in 88, 89. And at that time, if some of you, I think most of the audience is much, much younger, hospitality was really in its infancy in India. There were just a very handful of hotels. The business landscape was not so exciting either. So it was a very challenging time to join the industry, and it's certainly not what you see now with so much development in tourism, hospitality, and the whole field. My father actually died 1.5 years later after I joined the business. So suddenly I was catapulted from looking after one hotel to looking at the 3 hotels that we had, Calcutta, Delhi, and Visakhapatnam. So that kind of transition, as I kind of solidified my leadership and integrated the 3 hotels together, they were all operating in very different manners. Some were older. The Calcutta and Vizag hotels were older. The New Delhi one was relatively new, which opened in 1987. I really looked at how we could differentiate the small, disparate 3 hotels. And I was quite influenced in the early 90s by what Philippe Stark and Ian Schrager had created in New York. It was the early days of boutique hotels, and I said, okay, my God, I don't have to do this by having all brass and marble and, you know, the usual trappings. I said, I can be adventurous, I can be differentiated, and I can create something very, very, let's say in those days, radical. And it started organically with maybe a restaurant, and one of the restaurants was, say, Zen in Calcutta, which I'm still very proud of. It started, the designer had something very much in mind, which I guess my father had started that design renovation program. And I said, no, I don't want this, kind of dragon-y looking design. I said, I want a restaurant that's black and white and Zen. And so that restaurant opened in 1993, and it was, I was renovating the Calcutta hotel, the Visakhapatnam hotel, and then eventually the Delhi hotel to build a different type of hotel. And so, I mean, that hotel that restaurant in Calcutta was one of the ways we differentiated through design, through art, through the way we opened the restaurant. And if you go back to the 90s, we didn't have budgets we were a small company. We had really no budgets to do advertising or things like that. So what we did very actively from 1992, 93 onwards was to use PR and communications everywhere. So whether it was amazingly designed invitations or very tongue-in-cheek advertising when we did use advertising. And we worked really on a shoestring budget, and it was really the PR activities and the invitations and the events that made the hotels buzzy, kind of happening places in each city. And that was the goal. And it was just like fun things. And in the 90s, no one did those things. We just did very avant-garde things to attract people. And the idea was to make the hotels buzzy and local, so that local people could use the hotel. It was not just about the travelers. It was not just about having a comfortable room and a bed. It was to make restaurants that were hubs for local people as well as for travelers coming in from wherever they were coming. Also, I guess I was also about, early 20s, and I could see that there were no places for young people to go out. And I wanted to create places that I would enjoy hanging out in and being in, and whether having a drink or a dance or music. So we really, by 1994, coined this vision of leadership through differentiation. And the idea was to create this collection of luxury boutique hotels that were differentiated and that were reflective of contemporary Indian culture. And by that, I meant music, nightlife, food, fashion, art and design. And those were the ways that we got different people and created a community, or what everyone calls a community now. And at that time, they were all just these SMS lists and emailers and those type of tech version 1 things. But it was building loyalty, it was building community, it was building people who stay in our hotels even now because they want to make sure that they have a nice buzzy nightlife, or after they finish work, they have great bars and restaurants to hang out in. For example, our hotel in Calcutta, which is the first one, has 6 bars and nightclubs. Okay, so it may be small with 150 rooms, but the place post 9 o'clock in the evening is just heaving with people, and it becomes this kind of magnet in the center of the city for people to enjoy. So that's really been at the heart of it, and I'm going to talk about this further. There's a lot more to talk about. So we started making these changes in Delhi, in Calcutta, in Visakhapatnam, and by the end of the 90s, we were known for creating these happening, fun, daringly different design hotels. So as a family, by the end of the 90s, once we consolidated the business and it was profitable, we decided that the tourism and hospitality is the industry we'd like to invest in further, where we'd like to build more hotels. So we acquired 2 properties in Chennai and Bangalore and opened that, both of them in 2000, 2001, and suddenly we had a national footprint. Of course, the hospitality business by that time had begun to boom. India's economic progress had happened for much of the late 90s, and we were there in the right place as Indian consumption started to rise with our differentiated restaurants, bars, hotel rooms. In the mid-2000s, we did 2 things. We took private equity to fuel our growth, and we redefined our brand architecture. So to make it, we realized that we could not put the park in every single city because they were large format hotels, and you needed kind of a target group that was that you could carry with you with these pillars of creativity and culture. So the way we defined it was the park, which would be city center hotels typically, or even resorts, but large. Everything is differentiated. All the hotels are individual, and there's a story for each one of them, which is unique to them. Okay, so in the when we did the rebranding and the looking at the brand values and cultures, we kind of coined this phrase of anything but ordinary, and that's what drives the park hotels and the park collection. The park collection is kind of a boutique, even more boutique-y offerings, 20 to 40 room boutique properties in places of architectural beauty or in heritage sites, and we are doing a lot of that now. And again, with the values of creating anything but ordinary experiences for our customers. So we created a new brand then, and that is something called Zone by the Park. And these are, as I said, we realized that there's the growth happening in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, and we needed to be in all those places. We now have about 20 hotels under the Zone by the Park and the Park Zone Connect by the Park brand. And we built this as, in the late 2000s, really as social catalyst hotels. So it was design conscious, it's priced well, but we always, we saw what was happening in terms of even co-working and other spaces at that time, and created spaces where people could intermingle and, particularly in small cities, there's nothing very much to do. So how do you make these hotels buzzing and happening, and of course deliver that at a lower cost to developers as well as the end customer. So we now have 35 hotels across these brands, 85 differentiated restaurants, bars, and nightclubs. And we also have Flurries, an almost 100-year-old, really iconic patisserie confectionery brand that also started in Calcutta. We're backed by a super management team. Many have been working with me for the past 20 plus years, and they live our vision and mission every single day. I like to say that creativity is in our DNA. That's how I approach the business, and that's how I do what I do every day. And I think that's what excites and motivates each one of our team members to create, innovate, and lead with differentiation. We recently did a very successful IPO earlier this year, and I think that's a testament to the unique brands that we have created and the business that we've created over the past 5 decades, using innovation and creativity to create a very unique niche for ourselves. So I thought that's good for my opening remarks.
Thank you, Priya, for that wonderful keynote to begin with. I think you really, really set the stage for the rest of the 2 days for us. Your journey has been an incredibly inspiring one, and I have spoken to multiple people to try and get a sneak peek into Priya Paul. And I have to say that each one of the people who I spoke to had such fantastic things to say about you. I think everyone brought out a new facet to Priya Paul. And some of the things that I heard from people were stories of determination and courage. I heard about stories of being much, much ahead of times, always. I heard fantastic stories of leadership and stories of keeping relationships. I'm now going to start by asking you a few things about your courage and determination stories. I read when you were 10 years old, you decided to join the family business. Have you always been this determined in life?
I think my family members would call me stubborn. But yeah, I think determination is a good thing. And sometimes being determined leads to great things. Sometimes you also make bad decisions being determined. But I think the decision to join the business was something I was inspired. I wanted to be in business, so I did decide at 10.
In the 1990s, and I think specifically in the year 1995, if I'm not mistaken, you hosted a fashion show at the Park Hotels in Kolkata. And at that point in time, you invited 3 now internationally acclaimed fashion designers. You also had some international models walk the ramp. And fashion shows weren't really a thing of the times then. Moving on, I think in the year 1994 again, you launched a nightclub in Kolkata. If not mistaken, it was called, and it still is, Someplace Else. Which I think is one of the most buzzing places that you may find in Kolkata. Again, hugely successful. Tell us, what gives you the courage to think so boldly each time you're thinking of launching something?
Thank you. I think those were a really seminal time. You know, it was a great time. We were building the business, as I mentioned, with less budgets. Certainly, we were renovating and trying to reposition the hotels in each of the markets that they were in. So the idea was to create these spaces that people could hang out in, eat, mingle, relax, and they were contemporary. They were not like the, let's say, the typical club that you would go to down the road. And I'm talking about back in the 90s, where there were options of non-club and a few classic restaurants. There was nothing really very much in the big cities, whether it was Delhi, Bombay, Calcutta certainly was even more limited. So we set about creating points of differentiation and looked at where we wanted to be. And I think, as I said, we built things that we felt that as young people we would enjoy. And there was a whole younger team. Many of them who've fed you many questions and information. And so it was putting all those elements together and creating a place where people could just relax and be themselves. It was not trying to be a formal hotel. We were not trying to create boring business hotels, even though the base of our customers was really strongly business. So it was a mix of that. And I think, you know, Someplace Else is 30 years old this year in Calcutta, and we've of course now opened in Mumbai and probably will roll it others. It has a different identity in Mumbai, but the Calcutta one is, you know, still rocking 30 years later. So that's a testament of its kind of brand pull.
I think there's a lesson.
I'm sorry, the fashion and all that is part of our identity, like doing innovative things at that time. no one did fashion shows, no one did, even theater at the hotels. And the hotels then became venues for all these activities and events, which you couldn't find across the city, whether it was book readings or theater, as I said, music and working with, top DJs. A lot of the top DJs started off in our clubs. Many of the ones that you see now, not now, even 10 years ago. So it was always about promoting talent, Indian, international. We've had our own performing arts festival for many years. Of course, post-COVID, there are different things happening. So
I think there's a lesson in there for everyone over here because less budgets but powerful ideas, right? And I think that is one thing that most of our clients in our industry ask for. So I think that's a fantastic lesson to learn for each one of us sitting over here. I'm going to jump a little bit on leadership here, and I'm going to ask you, there's a story when once it so happened that there was a person who was called by Karan, you, and Preeti at the same time. And when the person appeared, both Karan and you instantly said, why don't you go and meet Preeti first? I think there are huge lessons to learn over here about leadership. Can you tell us a little bit about how three very successful people working in the same organization manage egos?
So I think we're very fortunate that we, three of us inherited a business that is large enough to give each one of us a lot of space and individual kind of businesses to run. So my sister Preeti runs the real estate and logistics and other real estate related things, including things like Oxford bookstores and other businesses like that. My brother runs the tea and the shipping, and he's the chair of the company. And I've been doing the hospitality since I joined the business. So we all have our spaces. We have a group management committee. We talk to each other. We work together, and yet because we grew up in the same house and we're very close in age, there's a lot of synergy in our thinking and in the way we approach things. So we are together and we live together also in whichever family homes we're in. We have our meals together, and that's part of our tradition and part of also keeping not just the family together but also the business together.
So clear demarcation of roles and responsibilities is always very important, and I think the whole spirit of being together says so much about the culture of the place that you've built. I'm going to ask you my next question, which is, you had once said that not attending a formal hospitality management school allowed you to question the status quo and take risks. How important is it for leaders to challenge conventional thinking? And can you share a moment when taking a risk really paid off for you?
So, we are business people and entrepreneurs, and taking risks is an everyday thing and every minute. So I think we're constantly doing it. So there's no real one risk that I can, that I even want to talk about. It's everything. It's, it's the decisions of, painting a room red, or doing unconventional, let's say unconventional colors and interiors, so those are risks. It's risks sometimes in investments. Sometimes they take longer to pay off, sometimes not. So there are a variety of risks, and I think those are the business risks. What I also talked about earlier about not hospitality, and what I touched about in my opening remarks, is that because I'm not from hospitality, I could look at the business in an unconventional way. So let's say in 2000, 2001, when we were doing, I'll just give you an example that's very far away. We were doing this hotel in Chennai. It was the first hotel, I would say the modern hotel in Chennai. And that hotel really revolutionized and changed the way Chennai ate, drank, partied, and spent their money. In fact, some very conservative people, when I was building the hotel, said, but who will come and spend money in Chennai? We opened the leather bar, called the leather bar, and on day one, the general manager and myself invited 20 people only. After that, it's never stopped, and it has a life, and people are there, and all the young people and who we didn't even know came out and were there in their kind of the fancy clothes, and people didn't understand that Chennai had that let's say that pent-up demand for people wanting to find an alternative space, and we were just there. So that's a huge risk that we did. I did something that was, it was also a very, very contemporary hotel, and quite different from anything else in the market then, and I hope it continues to be so.
I'm sure it would have required you to have very deep understanding and knowledge of the customers as well as the market, just to be sure that day one when you launch, you actually have like a full house.
Frankly, I'm from the school, and this is, you all PR and marketing professionals. I don't necessarily always think that customers know what they want. They might know what they don't want, and I think if you're going to think, sometimes you have to put out a product that may be a little ahead of its time, because I don't think customers can always articulate what they want from a space. So I think it's more important from my creative process. And yes, we know that, okay, fine, we want sit-down tables, stand-up tables, cocktail, that type of stuff. But how they want to experience the space is something that is part of my design brief and the collaborative process with the designers that we choose to execute that vision. So the hard facts are always there, but I don't really believe in market surveys to find out what type of restaurant I should put or a bar to put. It's sometimes a feel, and sometimes you get it wrong. So
intuitive.
Yeah. Well, yeah, a little more than intuition, but yeah.
Very interesting. I've heard a lot about your remarkable curiosity, whether it's to do with food, its places, people, ideas. How do you think this constant curiosity shapes your leadership and the guest experiences at the Park Hotel?
It's my curiosity. It's also the way we've identified what we should be. So if we're saying we are going to be leadership, our vision is leadership through differentiation, how do you constantly create those touch points that are differentiated, not just for our customers, but also for our team members? So, the way we built the culture code and the values is that we want people to be curious, innovative, take risks, and create inspiring spaces for themselves. It could be their little workspace and work area, or it could be what they do for the customer facing. So that's what's embedded in our culture code, and that's how we keep on reinforcing that and recognizing and encouraging people, whether it's through an award system or whether it's, constantly looking, okay, fine, what next? What are you going to do? And that's very important to us.
Right. Nikhil, who's here in the audience, sitting here, he mentioned that you had once planned a food tour to Old Delhi with military precision. Even knowing exactly where the best shirmals and kebabs were. Do you bring that same fun but precise approach to the hotels as well? And how does your team keep up with your level of attention to detail?
Well, that was a very good kebab trail, and yet one that I have to do again with you. So I think it's also, it is my curiosity, and I think it's not something that is new, it's something that is there, and it's something like when right now we are just building out 2 hotels. One is in Chettinad, and one is in Patiala. Both very different destinations, but again, how do you build creativity, culture, innovative products into that kind of offering for the customer? So it's not just going to Chettinad and doing what every other hotel has done. Our teams are saying, okay, fine, go out and find more. What else can people do? And how are you going to create experiences that are anything but ordinary? So if the tagline is anything but ordinary, everyone has to live up to there.
Right.
So
from what I know, Priya, every park property has a story. So for example, the Chennai Park Hotel is actually built on a former studio, which was once upon a time very famous. Like you mentioned, the Chennai property also has a bar which is called as the Leather Bar, and Chennai is famous for leather. How do you really weave culture and creativity?
But it's an important part, and now everyone calls it storytelling. I think we were doing it in the mid-90s. So at that time, we had like one of the hotels is based on the chakras. You just take inferences from local things, some idea that we want to do. We're doing a hotel in Pune. So that is, somebody talked about this being the Oxford of the East. So that is one of the ideas that we're looking at in terms of the design, that is it that, and how can we express that in the story to the hotel? So each of the parks is very different. So each one of them has to have a unique idea, and that's how you embed it into the graphics, the communication, the uniforms, the music maybe, and the food and beverage offerings. So each one, so I might have a bar in every place, but each one looks different, right? So you build a story around that.
Is that the uniqueness also about the park hotels, that there is something unique in every place?
Yeah, so you'll go from one hotel to another, you know that you're going to be in a different space. It's not going to be the same. So even if we do, we have this thing called, this bar called Aqua, which is by the poolside. That's not that. By the poolside in most of our hotels. And that's like kind of like a fun pool, Miami Beach meets India vibe. And we started doing that with the first hotel in 2002, and really created this whole poolside bar vibe in each of our hotels. But each one of them looks different, but they have the kind of idea and the sense behind it. So yeah, it's part of it.
When I speak to people about you, they speak about your generosity, they speak about collaboration, they speak about a person who really values relationships. Bringing this to the park hotels, what does the handbook of the park hotels look like when we're talking of culture?
Of culture, you mean the company culture? So I talked about it, and I think that's, there are pillars, which are empowerment, integrity, excellence, and which are the values that drive people. But what we like to see in the workplace, and what we feel that brings results to us, are encouraging people to be spontaneous, to be creative, to be inspiring, and to making their workplace fun. And we feel that if people live these values, enjoy what they're doing, and which I think our people do, because we gave them a lot of space to create and innovate and to be who they are, we feel that they will produce results and they'll be engaged and be very much there. And hospitality is a tough business. It requires a lot of hours, and whether if you're somebody's working in a bar, there's constantly events and other things to look after. So people have to be engaged all the time and awake. So I think this is what helps them, because we empower them to be themselves.
Yeah, I think that's going to be my next question to you. The hospitality industry is 24/7. It's a very high pressure job. How do you make sure that you help people maintain a work-life balance and yet maintain the level of service or customer satisfaction that you'd like the park hotels to have?
So honestly, that's a tough one, and I think it's really dependent on let's say the business head, or let's say the department head, to really look at their people and to see that all that balance is happening. Of course, there are business reasons, and of course, there are, you have the winter season where it's chock-a-block, and the summer it may be lighter. They make sure they get a lot of offs. Our HR team is experimenting with different ways of keeping people engaged, because they see post-COVID there are changes to how much people want to work and how much of time they want off. So they're experimenting with shorter hours, different structures, 5-day week, which is a radical thing in hospitality. It is, because most people work 6 days at least. So looking at those ways and looking at how we can balance the needs of a younger generation as they come into work and into hospitality.
Interesting. How do you encourage creative thinking within your teams, given that it's such an integral part of, I think, the philosophy of the park hotels?
So occasionally we get into a huddle and do that, and we do, kind of an offsite where we talk about where are we doing that. I mean, are we living this whole anything but ordinary life? Are we bringing that to life for ourselves and for the customers? And people are encouraged, even in their, kind of their KRAs and the evaluation, to enumerate what they've done. We give awards for that at all levels, at staff level and management level, to encourage people to constantly think of innovative ideas. And it could be a small thing like, I don't know, there was, we've had 2-3 cyclones, and out of the waste wood, the carpenter and the gardener made some things. So there are, that's a small thing, but it's also upcycling, it's sustainability, it's all those ticking off many boxes.
You've made some really bold moves of integrating music and local art into your hotels. What's been your favorite creative risk at the Park Hotels?
Maybe it's yet to come, I don't know. Right. Well, right now, as I said, I'm working on 2 very exciting projects that we've been working for a long time. And when you do projects, then you get embedded. Each one becomes a little baby. So right now, the 2 little babies are happening. And I think, and they're both risks, they're both destinations that need to be marketing. And I think let's say the design has been quite bold. You'll see pictures soon, so you can tell me. But so that's it changes.
I'm going to shift a little bit to women in leadership roles and in general, and I think given that I have such a strong woman leader sitting right here on the stage with us, I cannot not ask that question. Okay, I have to make it quick. You've been a strong advocate for women in leadership roles. How do you ensure that women in your organization have the opportunities and support to rise through the ranks?
So obviously, being a woman leader, I'm conscious about that. It's something that we monitor, whether it's X percentage or not. And I think when I see more women joining and being part of the organization and rising through the ranks and getting into leadership roles, that's the source of satisfaction. I was just in a hotel in Visakhapatnam recently, and I was walking around as I'm supposed to inspect, and I found the bakery in this hotel, which is 55 years old. They had a team of 6 women, all women bakers. So this is not something that had come to me. I even knew about it. I just found it by accident. And I think when I see that type of thing happening, then I feel that the managers and the team really is taking it seriously. And that's very important because the participation of women is very low in business. And I would encourage the women in this room to actually work with women-led organizations, NGOs, to encourage not just corporate women, but also women who are less fortunate and who need more mentorship and leadership and from you.
One question on community. Is there a particular project or initiative that holds personal significance for you? One that that you feel has made a really profound impact in your personal life or in the hospitality industry? I know you have a lot of initiatives, which is why I'm asking for one.
Yeah, well, I would single out actually the Jantar Mantar project that I've been involved in since 2000. It's with the government. Jantar Mantar is right opposite the park in New Delhi. And I was interested in it. It started because I lived right opposite that, and I would see it in darkness every day. And I said, I must do the lighting, must do the lighting, must do the lighting. It took me a long time to get permission to do it. And now we are called the Monument Mitra for it. But it's also kind of personal for me because I'm interested in architecture, heritage conservation, and that's why I've really gone into these palace hotels because it's an adaptive reuse thing. So it kind of brings in all the things that I'm interested in, and I like that space. So the Jantar Mantar is something that I hope I'll keep associating ourselves with, and that's a big project for us.
Super. Before we close, I'm going to ask 2 or 3 rapid-fire questions because I think we have exactly 2 minutes to go. What is your success mantra?
Well, it's actually is a family mantra, and we used to make fun of it, but it's actually work hard and play hard, and that's how I keep my balance in life to do both.
If not hospitality, which other industry would you be pursuing?
I would have been a chef.
Wow. Is there a business leader or an entrepreneur whose work you really admire?
You know, you borrow and you learn lessons from so many people in your lifetime, and I think, you know, certainly I have my family as role models to look at, and no, I'm not going to give more names.
Thank you so much, Priya. It's been a fantastic opening to the PRAXIS, the 11th edition of PRAXIS, and very grateful to have you here with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you.